thankful for everything God is doing. A couple places I really want to take us. I'll go into a little bit more of what I think the Lord had showed me during that play last night. But something to really ponder about today. Why does churches have problems getting and keeping people saved? Why do we have those kind of problems? And why are we having troubles helping people enjoy life and enjoy life more abundantly? Why are we having those kind of problems in what we're doing? And why do we have these kind of situations going on? Why we seem to be having these kind of problems? You can be turning with me to Luke chapter 6, verse 39 is what we want to give you some thought of today. Because I know that God has given us a lot of knowledge. He really has. He's given us a lot of wonderful things. Has shown us a lot of great things. He's desiring us to have life more abundantly. I have a heart's desire to see people have life more abundantly. And I believe a lot of you are desiring life more abundantly and having great things. But if we want to help others, we're going to have to learn to help ourselves first. And I think that's what we'll learn in this and learn in what we're going. But why is believers in churches having problems getting people saved? Because it seems like believers are moving from church to church, or denominations that are growing are denominations that we know are not, I don't want to put nobody down, but not exactly in the full truth, let's say, of the Word. There's some denominations growing, and there's some churches growing. I thank God for what God is doing. But let's listen to what the Word says, and the exact things that God has told us that we can judge by. Do we see it? It's not just in the church house, but it should be a 24/7 lifestyle. That we should be experiencing God. We have heard of people making comments of how lively their church is. And they may be having knockdown, powerful church services. But what kind of life are they living outside of the church? See, it's not just that God shows up for 2 or 3 hours and then He takes a rest and then He shows back up next church service. That's not God. God is a 24/7 God. God wants a 24/7 relationship with you, with me, with every person on this earth. In Luke chapter 6, beginning at verse 39, the Word says this, "And He spake a parable unto them. Can the blind lead the blind? Shall they not both fall into the ditch? The disciple is not above his master, but either one that is perfect shall be as his master. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but perceivest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Either how canst thou say to thy brother, Brother, let me pull out the mote that is in thine eye, when thou thyself beholdest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, cast out first the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to pull out the mote that is in thy brother's eye. For a good tree bringeth forth not corrupt fruit, neither doth a corrupt tree bringeth forth good fruit. For every tree is known by his own fruit. For the thorns even do not For the good tree is corrupt fruit, and then for the tree is known by its own fruit. For the thorns men do not gather figs, nor a bramble bush gather they grapes. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. Does any of you get any of this? Do we understand of this? How important have we been talking about sight and being able to see? Jesus even said we got to be able to see the Father's work for we can join Him. One of the answers to the lukewarm church, anoint your eyes with eyesight that you may be able to see. So how important is sight? And He said to the lukewarm church, you blind and wretchable, all these things, that we be blind. So if we're blind trying to help those who need help, then where are we going to lead those? We're both going to fall into the ditch together. We're both going to crash together. We're both going to go down together in whatever path we're trying to take. Why? We have good intentions. And I could take you to the Scriptures, and I may take you here in a minute, and we read it before, where King David, with the greatest intentions, a man after God's own heart, a man who God really looked upon, who had the greatest intentions to build the greatest little cart to bring in the ark, did it not the way God desired, and God rebuked him. And we've talked about this before. So even if King David can't change the mind of God, how can you and I change the mind of God and how God wants to do things? We cannot. We cannot change the way God wants to do things. But if we are blind, if we're looking at the situations, we're looking at the circumstances, how do you know that? How do you know that? He goes on and explains it here in a minute. We'll get to if you know that you're in this situation, if you know if you're in this. And he goes on and tells us how important the servants, and we just talked about this in a message that we had Wednesday night. It was a wonderful message the Lord gave us about the importance of a servant and gave the definition of a servant. And then he went on to deeply explain to us about these servants and how you cannot serve two masters. And many will say, but I'm not serving two masters, I'm serving God. But he went on to say that you'll hold on to the one and you'll despise the other. And we're holding on to God, hoping for the best, and we're not hating the enemy. He said you got to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, all thy mind, and hate Satan. You cannot hold on and despise the other. And if we're just sitting back holding on, we're not a servant. And guess what? If we're not meeting the conditions of a servant, he went on in Colossians and explained that you will be judged for this. You will be judged for not being a servant. You will be judged for not doing the things of God. You will be judged for not doing the works of God. And based upon the amount of knowledge we've been given, we're going to be held to some high standards. But we're also held to some high promises and some mighty things. But why can the church not help? Why can they not get through? Why can they not overcome? Because in verse 42, either now canst thou say to thy brother, brother, let me pull out the mote that is in thine eye, when thou cannot beholdest the beam that is in thine own eye. You can't help nobody. You can't help them. When you got the same problems, the same situations, it's much easier if you see my faults than it is your own. Today, people don't want to hear truth. They don't want help. They don't want to take that truth. They don't want to take these things and try to help God help them. Encourage themselves. They don't want to help that. So if we cannot get to that state to where we help God help us, then we ain't going to be able to help others. We're not going to be able to help get out and help people have life more abundantly. We're not going to be able to be used in these things because guess what? We got problems ourselves. And I'm not saying we're ever going to be into the Christ-like being completely 100% until we see Christ. But I'm saying we all got issues of truth that God has revealed to us that we're ignoring in our lives, I believe. We're ignoring these things, or we pass by them and say, well, my situation ain't that bad. John over here is a little bit worse than me. If he's going to heaven, I am. Or whatever our answer is. We've got a legit reason to be mad at this person. We got a legit reason to be